मम ज्ञानतिमिरन्दस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपकदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरुं श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणरघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्री राधा कृष्ण पादान् सहगणललिता श्री विशाखान्वितांश्च नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौरभक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. So, welcome everyone. We are continuing with the 8th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, and our discussion is based on the commentary of Sripad Ramanujacharya and also the Gita Sangraha verse of Yamunacharya, based on which we are discussing 8th chapter. And there are certain points very interestingly Srila Prabhupada talks about in his purports, which are actually connected to the commentary of Ramanujacharya. I'll be pointing some of them as well as we continue the discussion today. So just to recap where we are currently, we are looking at 8th chapter Gita. And yeah, so this is the verse of Sripad Yamunacharya. Aishwaryaksharyatatmya bhagavacharartinam vedyopadheya bhavanam ashtame veda uchyate. So Sripad Yamunacharya says that the 8th chapter Bhagavad Gita talks about 3 categories of devotees. One is Aishwaryarti, which in 7.16 is called as Artho and Artharthi. That means those who want opulences. One is Kaivalyarti, who is the Jignasu, and one is the Bhagavallabharti. That means who wants to achieve the Lord's lotus feet, who is also called as Jnani in the Gita in 7.16. So we have to be clear about these terms. So sometimes Jnani may be used, but that may be referring to a Bhakta. Some other places Jnani may be used, that may be referred to a Jnani only. So we need to understand the context where it is used. In the Bhagavad Gita 7th chapter, when Krishna says Jnani in 7.16, he is talking about a person who has become a devotee by understanding the greatness of the Lord. So that is why he is called as Jnani. And we see that Krishna saying in the subsequent verse, Bahunam Janmanamante Jnanavan Mam Prapadyate Vasudeva Sarvamiti. Okay, so he has come to this understanding that Krishna is all in all. So he is actually what we would call as devotee. And Yamunacharya says Bhagavallabharti. So now these 3 categories of devotees. So basically there are 3 types of devotees. One who is interested in material opulences, one who is interested in mukti, and one who is interested in serving the Lord's lotus feet. Okay, so they all have different destinations, and how they achieve their destinations is being discussed in the 8th chapter Bhagavad Gita. Correct. So in the 8th chapter Bhagavad Gita, it starts off, we have already seen the first part, I'm just recapping it in a couple of minutes. The 8th chapter Bhagavad Gita starts with all these questions. Kim tad brahma, kim adhyatma, kim karma, right? He's asking all these questions. What is Adibhutam, Adidevam, Adi Yajnam, all these things, right? He's asking. So these questions are also asked by Arjuna for different categories. So for Kaivalyarti, I mean those who want Kaivalya Mukti, the first 3 questions are there. What is Brahma, what is Adhyatma, and what is Karma? And if you see the answers of Krishna, you understand that. Krishna says Aksharam, that means the Jiva is Brahma. Swabhava, here Swabhava, Adhyatma here is not spirituality like we use in our common language, right? Adhyatmik Marg and all that we say. So here Adhyatma refers to Swabhava. That means Krishna is saying that, right? Swabhava Adhyatma Uchyate. That means the vasanas and the subtle self. So this is called as Adhyatma. This is called as Swabhava because, this should be known by the Kaivalyarti because he wants to achieve moksha. So in order to achieve moksha, he has to have this concept of Swabhava very clear, because only then he will know how to get out. And the karma which he is asking, Krishna is saying Bhuta Bhava Udbharakara, that means the union of male and female. So because this is the main entangling feature of this material world. Correct. And because this person is interested in Kaivalya Mukti, he needs to know this because he has to get out of this. Right. So this is the background of all these questions. Okay, we have already discussed this. So similarly for the Aishwaryarti, Adibhutam Adidevam. Adibhutam means the extraordinary quality of the five sense objects. Adideva means the topmost person than the devatas in sense enjoyment. So if you remember, we have discussed this point that when Krishna will give Aishwarya to the devotee who worships him, that is going to be greater than even what the devatas have. Correct? Because if Krishna is going to give Aishwarya, which is similar to what the devatas have, then why should somebody go to Krishna? I mean, there are so many ways, right? You can do some Vedic sacrifices and obtain the heavenly planets. But here Krishna is talking about, so when the Aishwaryarti goes to Krishna, saying that he wants some opulence, he gets something greater than Brahmaji, right? So we have discussed the story of Dhruva Maharaj, we have discussed about the Brihad Bhagavatamrita concept of, the coverings of the universe and the unimaginable material opulence that exists in all those places. So this is the Aishwarya, which is extraordinary, which is greater than anything that the Devas could experience, with Aishwaryarti obtains. Right. And then Adi Yajna means to understand Krishna and what should be the consciousness at the time of death. So these are some of the questions Arjuna is asking in the initial part of the 8th chapter. And these are all related to these three categories of devotees. Correct? So there are these three categories of devotees as we have discussed. Right? Now, at the outset, I wish to say that why Krishna is, creating such a facility. So let's be very clear about this. That Krishna wants to attract everybody back to him. But Krishna knows that everyone is not going to come. So there are people going to be interested in Kaivalya and Aishwarya. Krishna is saying, okay, fine, no problem. You follow the process and you will get this. But at any point of time, if these people who are interested in Kaivalya or Aishwarya, if they get attracted to the personality of Godhead and they decide they want to get upgraded and achieve the Lord's lotus feet, then Krishna is more than happy to upgrade their status. Okay, so this is the great advantage of worshipping Krishna even for an opulence, because you can, go ahead and, become a pure devotee and go back to Godhead. That kind of a thing, right? That is why, see, the Bhagavatam says, Akama sarva kamava moksha kama udarati tivrena bhakti yogena ijeta purusha para. Whether you are akama, that means your akama is referring to those who want spiritual world. Moksha kama is referring to Kaivalyarti, right? And sarva kamava is referring to the Aishwaryarti. So in that verse also you will see these three categories of devotees. Those who are interested in material opulence, those who are interested in impersonal liberation, those who are interested in the Lord himself. So all this has been said already. And similarly, at the time of death, what the consciousness is, Krishna speaks. So if you remember in that verse, Krishna says, Antakala Jamama, he says, Yati Pan Bhavam. So that means Krishna is not saying you will attain me, he's saying you will attain my nature. So depending on what you are thinking, you will attain my nature. Now, we are going to see the last part of the 8th chapter from 8.8 onwards. So there are 3 sections in it. Okay, as per Ramanuja. So first section is, how should a person think of Krishna, right? Because all these are devotees, they are going to think about Krishna only, but each of them is going to think about Krishna differently. So the category 1 is the Aishwaryarti. How he should think about Krishna is said in 3 verses, 8.8, 8.9, 8.10. And how should the Kaivalyarti, the one who is aspiring for impersonal liberation, how he should think about Krishna is said in another 3 verses. And finally, in one verse, which is Ananya Cheta Satatam, Krishna is talking about how the Bhagavan Labharti, that means those who want to attain Krishna's lotus feet, how he should think about Krishna. Okay, and this point, interestingly, you will see in the Prabhupada's purport also. If you see 8.14 purport, Prabhupada starts by saying that this Ananya Cheta Satatam verse, which I have put here for category 3. But if you see the purport to that in 8.14 Bhagavad Gita as it is, Prabhupada starts by saying this verse especially describes the final destination attained by unalloyed devotees who serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead in Bhakti Yoga. Okay, so he's making it clear that this is for the unalloyed devotees. And then Prabhupada says previous verses have mentioned the other types of devotees. Then he mentions all those other types, the distressed, inquisitive, and so on. Are you understanding? So here also the hint is there of this concept. This concept is spoken by Ramanujacharya, but Prabhupada also talks about that same concept here, you see in that purport. Okay, so, right, so this is the point here. So now let's go into Ramanuja's translations and try to understand what he's saying here. So we are here in 8. We are here in this particular verse, which is 8.8, right? Abhyasa yoga yuktena chetasa nanya gamina paramam purusham divyam yati partha So here Krishna is talking about whom? Krishna is talking about this Aishwaryarti. Okay, so why Aishwaryarti? Let's try to understand. So, okay, first let's read the translation. Hey Arjuna, using the mind which has practiced abhyasa and yoga for a long time and which never wanders away to anything else other than me, remembering me at the time of death, me, the divine supreme person, he attains a state similar to mine. That means he gets bestowed with great wealth and lordship like me, the supreme person. So please remember, for the Aishwaryarti, what Krishna is going to do, he is going to give him opulence equal to himself. Which is what? That's why we hear also, right? When Krishna awarded Dhruva Maharaj that planet, he said that, this is something going to be greater than what anybody has. Okay, so this is the point, right? So Krishna is giving the Aishwaryarti, but this is material opulence. Okay, this is still within the material world, even though it is greater than Brahmaji. And such a person will have to come back because that material universe is going to get destroyed. So Ramanujacharya gives some very interesting definitions here to these terms in his commentary, as I'll elaborate. See, there are two words used here, abhyasa and yoga. Okay, so what is the difference between abhyasa and yoga? Somebody will say abhyasa and yoga seem very similar to us. Okay, so he has given very nice definition. So look at this. So the definition of abhyasa, this is quoting from some shastra. Alambana samshilanaha punaha abhyasa. Alambana samshilanaha punaha abhyasa, which means he says repeating something on which you have hold is called abhyasa. Okay, that means if you keep repeatedly doing something on which you have a hold, that is called abhyasa. This is the technical definition of abhyasa. Then he says, then what does this mean? What does it mean to say that repeating something on which you have hold? So he says, abhyasa means to follow varnashram. Okay, because that is what you have hold on, right? So just like somebody is a businessman, somebody is a Kshatriya, Brahmana, whatever he is, he has something on which he has hold, right? The Brahmana has hold on knowledge, Kshatriya has hold over his military power or whatever it is. Vaishya has hold over his Krishi Goraksha. And repeating that, repeating something on which you have hold is called abhyas. So that means he says, first thing, he should be doing abhyas. And second thing, he should be doing yoga. Now, what is this yoga? So Ramanuja says, this is the yoga which is already mentioned in the 6th chapter Bhagavad Gita. Okay, so if you remember, we had discussed in great detail in 6th chapter Bhagavad Gita that Dhyana Yoga, which is 6th chapter Bhagavad Gita, that is not something that a person has to do in the forest, if you recall. That yoga was supposed to do by somebody who is doing Karma Yoga only. Correct? So that means this person in Varnashram, he is going to do yoga. That means, so Ramanuja gives an example. He may do 2-3 hours a day, such a yoga, sit and meditate like that. And now, how is he going to meditate? That is going to be specified. So please remember, see, everybody is going to think about Krishna only. But because this person wants Aishwarya, he is going to think about Krishna in a very specific manner. And that is spoken in the next verse. Kavim Puranam Anushasitaram Anoraniyan Anusmaretya Sarvasya Dhataram Achintya Rupam Aditya Varnam Tamasaf Parasta. Look at these. If you look at each of these words in this 9th verse, these are all various opulences of the Lord. Okay, see, the first one is saying Kavi. Kavi means what? Kranti Darshi iti Kavihi. That means Sarvajna. See, Kavi doesn't mean a poet, right? So it is someone who knows, who is omniscient. Sarvam Janati iti Sarvajna. Sarvajna, Kavim Puranam, Anushasitara. Anushasta means what? Shasta means one who controls. Okay, so there is a verse of Prahlad to Hiranyakashipu. Shasta Vishnu Asheshasya Jagato Yo Gridistitaha. Right, so that means Prahlad is telling Hiranyakashipu that the same Lord who is controlling you is also controlling me. Okay, so just like the Sengol, it represents the Lord's control. Hence, wherever the Utsav Murti goes, the Sengol also goes with it. Okay, so this is all Antapravishta Shasta Paramatma. So this is another thing of Shasta. Shasta means he is sitting inside and he is giving direction. Dhata, that means he creates again and again. Achintya means very difficult to understand. So look at these attributes here. The omniscient Lord, the ancient one, the one without a beginning, the ruler who controls all entities, the one who is subtler than the subtle Jivatma, Anoraniya, this is a mystic opulence. These are one of the mystic opulences, something which is small, something large and all that. Right? The creator of all entities, the one with inconceivable divine form, the one with auspicious divine body which is effulgent like a million sun, Aditya Varnam, the one who is beyond the darkness of Prakriti. So these are all amazing attributes of the Supreme Lord which indicate his opulence. Okay, so here Ramanuja says that because you want Aishwarya, you think about the Lord with all these Aishwarya type of qualities. And because you are thinking about the Lord with all Aishwarya type of qualities, you will get such opulences. You will get opulences which are like this. Krishna is ready to give. That's the point here. Okay. And then in the next verse, Krishna is talking about how such a person will die. Okay, how he'll give up his body. Look at that. Prayana kale manasa chaleva bhaktya yukto yoga balena chaiva bhruvor madhye pranamavesha samyak satam param purusham upaiti divya. Okay, that means you need to think at the time of death about this form. Okay, manasa chalena, the mind should be fixed on the goal. Okay, so bhakti is there. Please remember, he is a bhakta only, but he is a bhakta who wants Aishwarya. He has to, there is a yogic method of bringing the prana shakti between the eyebrows. You have to raise that kundali and bring it here and achieve that as, he's thinking about all this, so he's going to get. So look at the translation. The person with loving devotion to the Supreme Lord, who is with all above mentioned qualities, strengthened by yoga practice with a steadfast mind which never wanders away to insignificant material matters. So Ramanuja says, he's not supposed to think about some insignificant material things about this universe. Like suppose if he's thinking that, I want to go to America and settle down, and then he's trying to do this, then he's not going to get that destination because he's thinking about something very insignificant. Right? He has to be very clear, I want that. At the time of death, with pranavayu firmly established between the eyebrows, the one who deeply remembers the supreme divine person, such a person attains immense wealth and lordship similar to what Bhagavan possesses. So such opulence is given to such a person. Right? So this is the first part of the Aishwarya Arati. The person who wants Aishwarya, how he can get. Now please remember, we as devotees, we don't practice like this. This method is given in Bhagavad Gita for somebody who wants. The next 3 verses is talking about the Kaivalya Arati. Okay, so this Kaivalya Arati is the second category, who wants impersonal Brahman. And Ramanuja at this point, he makes a very interesting comment. He says that the Aishwarya Arati is more safer than the Kaivalya Arati. Because this Aishwarya Arati is there, at least he maintains individuality. So any point of time, if he can get attracted to Krishna, he can go back to Vaikuntha as well. But this Kaivalya Arati is very dangerous because this fellow, once he gets stuck in that impersonal Brahman, he will completely forget the Lord, and then it is very difficult for him to get upgraded. Okay, so though technically Kaivalya Arati is superior than the Aishwarya Arati, from safety position, Aishwarya Arati is considered more safer than Kaivalya Arati. Okay, but that's anyway a technical part here, right? So look at text number 11. Yadaksharam Veda Vido Vadanti Vishanti Yad Yatayo Vitaragaha Yatichanto Brahmacharyam Charanti Tatte Padam Sangrahenam Pravakshe. That which Supreme Person is described by the knowers of Vedas as Akshara. Okay, Akshara means what? Why it is called Akshara? Okay, because this Brahman is unchanging, right? Because the form of Brahman is unchanging. This Akshara is referring to that Brahma Jyoti. It's an unchanging entity of the Lord, unchanging nature of the Lord, right? Desiring of attaining whom persons with diligence control their senses and practice detachment and practice the vow of celibacy. So for such a person, celibacy is important. The Supreme Person who is attained as a fruit of such practice, that Supreme Person who is to be meditated upon, shall clearly be explained might be in brief. Okay, so that means now Krishna is going to talk about the Kaivalya. He is making it very clear. If you look at this verse itself, you can easily understand, right? This is not talking about the devotees who are aspiring for the spiritual world or relationship with Krishna. Neither it is talking about somebody who wants Aishwarya. It is talking about somebody who wants that Supreme Lord who is unchanging, right? And he has to follow Brahmacharya and all that. Okay. Now, how this person has to meditate on the Lord, let's see. That's the next verse, right? Look at that. Sarva dwarani sanyamya manohriti virudhyacha murdhanya adhyatmana prana mastito yoga dharana. Prana mastito yoga dharana. Sorry. Having controlled by withdrawing from material matters all organs of perception which are doorways of intelligence. See, please remember, Sarva dwarani. See, this is why for the Kaivalya Arati, sense control is greatly emphasized. It's kind of, even for the Aishwarya Arati, we didn't see so much. Correct? But for the Kaivalya Arati, sense control is very, very important. I mean, it's like, that's the whole emphasis for him. Correct? And that's why we see in the Shankara Sampradaya, first thing one has to take sannyas to get mukti. Okay, you cannot be a grihastha and get mukti actually in their system. If you are grihastha, you can continue, and next life, some life you have to take sannyas, and then only you are going to get mukti. So because this is very important for them. Correct. So that concept is there here in the Gita also. Having control by withdrawing from material matters all organs of perception, which are doorways of intelligence, turning and fixing the mind on the Paramatma who resides in the heart. So this is why he is devotee also, right? Because he's focusing on the Paramatma. Having his mind permanently and steadily focused on Bhagavan, focusing one's life breath in his head. Okay, so please remember, Krishna is talking about 4 things here. First thing he's saying is, stop your senses from going towards sense gratification. Second thing, focus on the Paramatma in the heart. Take the life air to Murdhana Nadi. He has to take it here. So please remember, for Aishwaryarti, it was here. Remember, Krishna said, Dhruor Madhye, Pranamavesha Samyak. Previously, Aishwaryarti, Krishna said, bring the life air between the eyebrows. But for Kaivalyarti, he has to bring it here. So, their all destination is different only. They are supposed to have a different type of yoga practice. And again, please remember, the devotees of Krishna don't do this. I mean, the third category. Correct? The Bhagavan Labharti is not doing this. So this is also attaining the Supreme. This person is going to get it over here on the Murdhana Nadi and stay fixed in yoga. So 4 things Krishna has said as a practice for him. I'll repeat again. Stop senses from sense gratification. Focus on the Paramatma in the heart. Bring the life air to Murdhana, the top of the head, and stay fixed in yoga. 4 things he has said. Right? So the person who has done these 4 things, what is going to happen? Now in the next verse, at the time of death, what is supposed to do? See, that is also there. This is the 13th verse, 8.13. Om ityekaksharam brahma vyaharan ma manusmaran. Yaprayati tyajateham sayati paramam gatim. So somebody may say, why paramam gatim is said over here? Why paramam gatim? Because this is not param gati, na? This is kaivalya only. So Ramanujacharya says, see, from the previous verses, it is param gati. Because previously Krishna has spoken about Aishwaryarti. So the Kaivalyarti is going to get a destination higher than the Aishwaryarti. So that is why you can call it as Paramgati. But obviously what the devotee gets is superlative, right? That is the topmost. So that we will see later. So that is why I see Om Ityekaksharam. So such a person with continuous utterance of the Omkar, which is a sacred syllable, which is called Brahman, since it connotes me, contemplates on me, who is the meaning of the sacred symbol. The one who departs from his body, he attains the supremely immutable essential nature of Jivatma, which is basically nothing but Brahman platform, Brahma Jyoti realization, Brahma Jyoti state. Okay, so please try to again understand, this is about whom is Krishna talking here? Krishna is talking about the Kaivalyarti. And we can easily see this from the verse also. These are the people who are going to chant the Omkar. Right? They are the people. So he has to not only leave the life air from the top of the head, he has to leave chanting Omkar and remembering the Lord as the Omkar. Correct? The Brahman as the Omkar. Lord means the Brahman aspect of the Lord. And he will go there. Okay. So till now, Krishna has spoken now about the Kaivalya. Now about the Bhagavan Labharti, how he should think. Look at that. This is for the third category, the devotee. Very famous verse. Ananya cheta satatam yomam smarati nityashaha tasyaham sulabha partha nitya yuktasya yoginah. Okay, so Ramanujacharya says very nicely here that see, only here Krishna is using the word nityashaha. Nitya means what? Always thinking of me. Ananya cheta. You look at all these Sanskrit words only. Many times, even without seeing the translation, just by looking at the Sanskrit words only, we can understand what Krishna is saying. Right? Ananya Cheta means what? Always conscious. Nitya Shaha means again always. Nitya Yuktasya. Why Krishna is using all these adjectives? He says because it is only the Bhagavan Labharti who always thinks of Krishna. Because at Aishwaryarti, he is going to think of Krishna only till he gets Aishwarya. Once he gets Aishwarya, he may get lost in that enjoyment. Kaivalyarti also thinks of the Lord as a sadhana, as a path to get that liberation. But once he is in Brahman, he may again not think of the Lord. He will be thinking only about the Jivatma and that, he will only be thinking about himself over there. He is not meditating on the Lord in Brahmajyoti. But it is only the Bhagavan Labharti, the devotee, who is always thinking of Krishna. So let's read the translation. O Arjuna, son of Pritha, from the very beginning of Upasanam, at all times, okay, with his mind not drawn by other objects or benefits, he who remembers me fondly with devotion, for such a yogi who wishes to be ever united with me, I am easy to obtain. Okay. Now again Ramanujacharya says, Nitya Yuktasya, why it is said? Nitya Yuktasya is in present tense in this verse. Present tense means it appears as if this person is already with the Lord. So Ramanujacharya says, yes, it is like that. Because this person who is there, devotee, even in this world only, he is Muktatma. Okay, the other two people, they have to achieve something and then only they are called. But this devotee is not like that. Even in the world only, he has achieved. Okay. And he is also Sulabha. These are again very, very important words. Sulabha means Krishna is considered very easy to attain. Okay. So in this way, until this point, in these 7 verses, we have seen the topic how the devotee thinks of Krishna. Remember, Aishwaryarti thinks of Krishna in one particular way about the opulences, and he passes through the middle of the eyebrow. The Kaivalyarti thinks about, first of all, control his senses, meditates on Omkar, quits his body from the top of the Murdhana, and he achieves Brahmajyoti. As far as the Bhagavan Labharti is concerned, he is adopting the most simple process, which is to always think about Krishna. So please remember, though the destination awarded to the Bhagavan Labharti is the highest, process is simple. Actually, it is easier to be a devotee than to be these other 2 types of yogis. I mean, honestly, if you read the process now, to get your life hair in the middle of the head or in the between the eyebrows, this is much more difficult. Being a devotee is much more sulabha or easy, but that is how it is. Depending on what you want, you can get. One thing we can really appreciate Krishna's broad-mindedness. He has, Bhagavad Gita, that's why we repeatedly say, right? It's a book of choices. Krishna has told different paths here, and that's why Bhagavad Gita is a book which everybody uses. You will see this, whether people is Jnani, Karmi, Yogi, everybody refers Gita. Because Gita has something for everyone. And that is the beauty of the scripture. Right? It's such an all-accommodating text. Krishna has given for everyone. Okay, you want opulences? Chalo, come on, take this. You want to achieve Brahman Mukti? Take this. You want to come back to me? Take this process. So everything Krishna has laid out, right? Like a buffet. And one can take anything and go ahead. Okay, so this is how it is. Now, if you see Prabhupada's purports, as I told you in 8.14, I read it. Prabhupada always says in 8.14, Prabhupada said that point, right? That all the previous verses are talking about the other types of devotees. Prabhupada makes that point. That is actually coming from Ramanujacharya's commentary only. But if you read Prabhupada's purports to 8.8 to 8.13, most of the purports Prabhupada would say that, oh, this process is very difficult, so better to chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So sometimes when we read that, we may feel, this is not in line with the text. But the point is, these processes are indeed very difficult. These processes means for the Aishwaryarti and the Kaivalyarti, the process is actually very, very difficult. It's not an easy process. It is easier to become a devotee. And that is why Prabhupada has written like that in his commentary. But technically, if you see, those verses are talking about Aishwaryarti and Kaivalyarti. Okay. Now the next thing, Phalashruti. See, in anything, in our scripture, there is something called Phalashruti. Okay, we have spoken about 3 categories of devotees. What fruits are they going to attain? Correct. Everybody is interested to know what is the fruit attained by each of the 3 devotees. So category 1, Aishwaryarti, 8.16 to 90. Category 2, and 2 is actually not 3. Category 2 is 820, 821. And category 3 is 822. That means Aishwaryarti's Phalashruti spoken in 4-5 verses. Kaivalyarti's Phalashruti spoken in 2 verses. Bhagavan Labharti's Phalashruti spoken in 1 verse. Okay. So let's now have a look at that. Right. So now if you go ahead, look at this. So first thing, Krishna speaks is 8.15. This is again, actually, this is, I forgot to include 8.15. This is about Kaivalyarti and Bhagavan Labharti. Krishna saying, Mamupetya punarjanma dukkhale mashashvata napnuvanti mahatmanam samsiddhim paramam krita. Krishna wants to say that those who are actually the jnanis, that means the devotees who are there, these people are not going to come back to the world. Correct? So this point Krishna has emphasized here. Why? Because this is Phalashruti, right? The Phalashruti for the devotee and the Kaivalyarti is what? That he is not going to come back to this world. Which indicates what? That other person who is there, Aishwaryarti, even if he is going to go in the covering of the universe, he has to come back home. That is the point. That is Phalashruti. Phalashruti means, okay, he can enjoy, but ultimately he has to come back. That point has been said. Having attained the supreme goal of human endeavor, those great souls, jnanis, who have understood me, the supreme goal after attaining me, will never attain birth in this material world, which is an abode of sorrows and is transient. So this is, we know this verse very often. We have quoted this. Now look at the Phalashruti for the Aishwaryarti. And this fellow wants Aishwarya, he's got big Aishwarya now, which is equal to the Lord. But what is the Phalashruti? He has to come back. That is why Krishna is speaking all this. A Brahma Bhuvana Loka Punaravartanoduna Mamupeti Kaunte Punarjanmana Vidyate. Hey Arjuna, all worlds situated in samsara, including the realm of Brahma, Satyaloka, are liable to perish. And these persons who read these words have to be reborn. However, those who attain me, will not be reborn again. So it's very clear. Aishwaryarthi has to come back. Correct? That fellow will get good Aishwarya, but he has to come back. And now Krishna is elaborating all that. Sahasra Yuga Paryantam Maharyat Brahmano Vido Ratra Viva Sahasrantam Teho Ratra Vidojana. These are those famous verses where Krishna is talking about what is a day for Brahma, what is a night for Brahma. Why Krishna is talking about this? In order to say that ultimately when Brahma will die, his life is over. Aishwaryarthi is all, Aishwarya is also over. That fellow is going to come down. Okay, so that is what in the next verse also. Avyaktat Vyaktaya Sarva Prabhavanti Aharagame Ratriagame Praliyante Tatreva Avyakta Samyayake. Correct? That means that when the day is for Brahma, correct, at that time when the night starts, those entities devolve. So we know this, right? There is something called partial Pralaya and there is complete Pralaya. Every night of Brahma, all the worlds other than Tapaloka, Maharloka, Satyaloka, everything is destroyed. And at the end of Brahma's life, even that is destroyed. Okay, so the whole universe is destroyed. All the coverings are also gone. Bhuta Gramam say Evayam Bhutva Bhutva Praliyate Ratragame Vashapartha Prabhavantyaharagamé. Okay, so these translations are very similar to what we already understand from Gita as it is. So I'm not specifically reading them, but Krishna is basically saying that at night time, these people have to again take bodies. Okay, sorry, at night time, they are dissolved, and at daytime, again, they will be getting some body. Correct? Now comes the Falashruti for the Kaivalyarthi. Okay, please pay attention. Parastasmatu bhavodya, parastasmatu bhavonya, vyakto vyakta sanatanam, yasa sarveshu bhuteshu nasyatsu na vinishyati. Look at this. However, there is a different entity which is incredibly more superior than Mula Prakriti, which is non-sentient inert matter, is the eternal Jivatma, Sanatana. See, the Sanatana is referred to the Jivatma. Jivatma means the Brahman platform, who never changes and who cannot be apprehended through sensory perception and is self-luminous and not made from Prakriti. That is Avyakta. The one who, when all the material elements, their causes and effects are destroyed, is never destroyed. So what is Krishna saying in this verse very clearly? Krishna is talking about the Jivatman, which is basically the Kaivalyarthi's destination. Saying that this fellow's destination which is there is superior to Mula Prakriti. Because this Mula Prakriti which is there, even all the coverings of the universe, everything is going to get destroyed sometime. But this essential nature of the Jivatman is such that this doesn't change. So this person is going to achieve that, right? He is going to achieve. So this is a Falashruti for it. So please try to understand. Okay. And again, Krishna is continuing that in the next verse. Look at that. Avyakta Akshara Ityukta. Please remember, whenever you read such words, Avyakta, Akshara, you have to understand. This is all referring to Kaivalyarthi only. For such a person only, all these things are said. Avyakta Akshara Ityukta Tamaha Paramam Gatim Yam Prapya Na Nivartante Tadhama Paramam. Okay. The one who is termed as Avyakta, the unmanifest, and the Akshara, the imperishable, and is spoken by the seekers of Kaivalyam as the highly understood goal of human pursuit. After attaining that essential nature of Jivatman, Yam Prapya, the fellow doesn't come back to samsara. That prestige, essential nature of Jivatman, liberated from samsara, is the most exalted entity which is subservient to me. So that is how Ramanuja translates this verse, saying that Brahman platform is also eternal. Right, one can be there always, so that is also considered eternal only. Okay, so it is superior. In technically, it becomes superior to the Aishwaryarthi's position. This is a Falashruti for it. Okay, but as devotees, we would want to know something more. So hey, that's it. This is for us. Purushasya Parapartha Bhaktya Alabhastvanyanya Yasyantastani Bhutani Yena Sarvamidam Tatam. Hey Arjuna, in which supreme person all living entities reside. See, please look at the translation carefully. Hey Arjuna, in which supreme person all entities reside, by whom the entire universe is pervaded. See, this entire universe is not pervaded by that Brahman, right? It is pervaded by Bhagavan. That supreme person, Bhagavan, attaining whom, who is the greatest goal of human endeavor, is however attained through devotion, Ananya Bhaktya. Please remember, Ananya Bhaktya is only for the Bhagavan Labharti. Because Kaivalya Arti and Aishwarya Arti are not practicing Ananya Bhakti. Ananya Bhakti is only for this person. Through devotion which is practiced without considering any other benefit. Without considering any other benefit means no focus on Aishwarya, no focus on Kaivalya. Such a person is going to achieve Bhagavan. Okay, so this is also done. So at this point of time, Krishna has given the Phalashruti. Okay, now what else is left in the chapter? Okay, sorry, I just one second. Yeah, so paths to perfection. Now, the last part of the 8th chapter now is about path to perfection. That means there are two types of yogis, one who comes back and one who doesn't come back. Now, please try to understand this. All of us have read the last part of 8th chapter Gita. Many of us may have found it very difficult to understand because if you remember reading the last part of 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, now, Krishna talks about all this, right? One who passes away in day, one who passes away during Uttarayan and all that, and one who passes away at night during Dakshinayan and so on. He goes through another path. So many times when we read those verses, we may be thinking, how Krishna is talking about time, because actually in the verses it is time only. But here Ramanujacharya and Yamunacharya give a very, very different and also very, very interesting commentary. And this commentary is also echoed by Prabhupada in one of the purports in that particular section. I'll be reading that part as well. What Ramanujacharya says here is, ये जो बताया ना 8th chapter के end में, you should pass in the daytime, you should pass in Uttarayana, you should pass away and all that. He says this is not Kala, but this is Marga. Please try to understand the difference between Kala and Marga. Marga means path. You understood, na? Kala means time. Marga means path. Now you may say, Are, the verse Kala only said. Let's read one verse, then we will understand. Yatra kale tvanavrittim avrittim chaiva yogina prayatayanti tam kalam vakshami bharatarshava. Hey Arjuna, the jnani is departing through which path attain the state of non-return to samsara, and the persons of meritorious deeds departing through which path attain the state of subject to return back to samsara, being reborn again. I will discuss those paths. So what Krishna is saying in this 23rd verse is there are two paths. One path through which you will not return to samsara, and one path through which you will return to samsara. But somebody may say, Array, in the verse Kala is written. How can you translate Kala as Marga? So Ramanujacharya says one interesting thing. He says that though Krishna uses the word Kala, what we need to understand is this is the Devata of those Kala. That means when you say Uttarayana, when you say waxing moon, waning moon, these things have their own Devata, who is in charge. Devata of daytime, Devata of Agni. So though Krishna is using Kala only in the verses, but these Kala are represented by various Devatas. And those Devatas have certain abodes. And the abode of those Devatas act like a path through which the devotee is passing. You understood? Now you will see the same point Prabhupada also writes in one purport. I'm reading that 8.24 purport, Bhagavad Gita as it is. I'm reading from the purport. Prabhupada says, when fire, light, day and fortnight of the moon are mentioned, it is to be understood that over all of them there are presiding deities who make arrangements for the passage of the soul. Okay, I hope you heard this statement. This is in 8.24 Bhagavad Gita purport. You can read that. Which basically, so this concept also is coming from this commentary of Ramanujacharya only, that this is all referring to, Devatas who are in charge of those things. Right? Now, how do we understand this? So the point is, there are other verses in other Puranas which talk about this. So please try to understand this. So I'll just take one verse and then you will understand. See, look at this. This is from the 2nd canto, 2nd chapter, text number 24 that I put on the screen. Vaishwanaram yati vihayasa gataha sushumnya brahmapatena socisha viduta kalpota harerudastat prayati chakram nripa shaishumara. O king, when such a mystic passes over the Milky Way by illuminating Sushumna to reach the highest planet, Brahmaloka, this Brahmaloka, please remember, is not the This is referring to Brahman actually. This is not referring to the Brahmaloka of Lord Brahma. He first goes to Vaishwanara, the planet of the deity of fire, where he becomes completely cleansed of all contamination. And thereafter, he still goes higher to the circle of Sushumara to relate with Lord Hari, the Supreme Personality of God. I hope you are seeing this text here, right? So the point is, there are descriptions in the Puranas of what is technically called as Archiradi Marga. Archiradi Marga is the path of Archis, the path of light through which the devotees go, who don't come back to the world. That means for those who are not going to return back to the samsara, they have a particular path. And that path passes through these points, which are the abode of various devatas, the devata of Uttara and the devata of light and so on. So all these devatas have an address. So that path is the path of light. And there is another path called Dhumadi Marga. Dhumadi Marga, Dhuma means smoke, the path of the smoke. Please remember, this Dhumadi Marga is not the Yama Marga. Okay, so this Dhumadi Marga is for whom? It is for the Aishwaryarthi. This Aishwaryarthi people are there now who are going to get Aishwarya. They have a different path because they are not going to escape out of the universe. They have to come back. So the Dhumadi Marga is for the Aishwaryarthi. And those who are going back to the spiritual world, for them there is Archiradi Marga. Right? For them there is Archiradi Marga, who are going to go through the path of light back to Godhead. I hope everyone is able to understand this. There is another path which is called as Yama Patha, Yama Marga. That is not even spoken in the Gita. That is for Papi, who is going to Yamaraj and get punishment. Okay, so both the paths mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita 8th chapter are for the yogi only. You will see the translations also. Prabhupada also says, this yogi goes like this and this yogi goes like this. So he is also yogi only. Okay, but he is a yogi who is interested in Aishwarya. He has a different path he takes. And the yogi who is interested in the spiritual world has a different path. Now, why is this spoken in the Gita? Ramanujacharya says beautifully that just like Akrura meditated on the path when he was going to Vrindavan, right? We all know the story in the Bhagavatam. That Akrura, when he's going to Vrindavan, he's meditating on the path also, because the path is also very beautiful. The path is the path taken by so many great souls in the past. Meditating on that path itself becomes an aspect of Bhakti Yoga. Because so many great souls have walked that path of Archiradi Marga back to Godhead. Right, so this is why Ramanujacharya says that these things are mentioned in the Gita, attaining the Supreme. So those who are going to attain the Supreme abode of spiritual world, they are going to take Archiradi Marga, and the yogis who are going to enjoy all these opulences, Aishwarya, they are going to take the Dhumadi Marga. Eventually they will come back in Dhumadi Marga, but the Archiradi Marga people will not come back. So this is the point, right? So now we will go into the verses. Okay, so beautiful again, right? So that is why you are going to see Kala as Marga here. Okay, so I've already read 23. So let's go to 24. Okay, look at this. Agnir Jyoti Raha Shukla Shanmasha Uttarayanam Tatra Prayata Gachanti Brahma Vidojana. The Jnanis who have practiced devotion to attain Brahman. Again, please remember, here the word Jnani is not the Jnani of impersonal. This Jnani is devotee actually. This is the Jnani of the Chaturvida Bhajantema. Correct? He is Jnani only, right? Because he has Jnani means by knowledge of Krishna he has become Vaishnava, like that. The Jnani who has practiced devotion to achieve Brahman reaches the Brahman in his abode. Abode means this abode again is the spiritual world. Gachan iti Brahma. Okay, so spiritual world is also called as Brahma only. So that is fine, right? So it is not necessary that you have to find the word Vaikuntha to understand. Okay, but the commentary is that this is Vaikuntha which is being spoken here. He traverses the path called Archiradi Marga. And in the Archiradi Marga, what all are going to come? The effulgent Agni, daytime, the bright fortnight, the 6 months of the northern solstice. So these are all different devatas. And this is what you will see in the Bhagavatam and other Puranas also, where the Marga is being spoken. I mean, these are all various devatas who are in charge of these places and they have their abode. This is called Archiradi. It's a path of light. Archiradi Marga literally means path of light. So he goes like this, right? Now look at this. Dhumo Ratris Tata Krishna Shanmasha Dakshinayana Tatra Chandramasam Yogi. Tatra Chandramasam Jyotir Yogi Prapya Nivartate. Please remember, this is also about yogi only. This is not sense gratifier or the sinful man who is going to Yamaraj. Uske बारे में बात नहीं कर रहे हैं यहाँ पर. Krishna is talking here also about the yogi only, but this is the yogi who is Aishwarya Kami. Because the Aishwarya Kami has to come back to this world. Right? So what is he going to do? Similarly, the yogic person who performed meritorious deeds as the means for attaining the heavenly lokas, right? Various heavens he will attain depending on what his practice was, traverses the path called Dhumadi Marga, which consists of the following words: smoke, that means the Devata of smoke, okay? Night, the Devata of night, the dark fortnight of the moon, the southern solstice of 6 months. All these are Devatas, and attains the moon, and then returns to Bhuloka after exhausting the fruits of his material deeds. Right? He has to come back. He can go wherever he has gone, depending on how much he practiced and what Krishna awarded him opulence. Somewhere he will go. Then ultimately he is going to come back here. Right? He will come back. Right? Okay. Now what Krishna says? See, Shukla Krishna Gati Hete Jagata Sashwati Mate Ekaya Yatyanavrittim Ananya Vartate Punaha. These two marks, these two paths, Archiradi Marga and Dhumadi Marga, which are available respectively to the Jnanis, that means the Bhaktas, and those who perform meritorious deeds, that means those other people, Aishwarya. These two paths are well known in the Upanishads and is stated to be eternal like the flow of the river. Krishna is saying this is Shashwata. Ye dono path hamesha hamesha ke liye rehta hai. By traversing the bright path, that is Archiradi Margam, one attains the Brahman. Ekaya yati anavrutti, Brahman, after which there is no return to samsara. Anyaya, by traveling the other path, Dhumadi Margam, punaha avartate. You come back to Bhuloka to perform karma. Krishna is saying, वो वापस आना पड़ेगा, उतना ही. Right? नैते श्रुति पार्थ जानन योगी मुह्यन्ति कश्चन तस्मात् सर्वेषु कालेषु योग युक्तो भवार्जुन. Okay, so please remember, now here, beautiful, this 2.27, Krishna is saying, hey Arjuna, any Bhakti Yoga practitioner, by understanding these two paths, the Archiradi Marga and Dhumadi Marga, will never have any confusion and will have perfect clarity of the superiority of the Archiradi Marga, Dhumadi Marga, and thus you will become one who meditates on Archiradi Marga, which is a limb of Bhakti Yoga at all times. So Krishna is basically saying that these two paths are there, they are always eternal, and one who knows both. See, because once you know both, then you will automatically get attracted to Archiradi Marga only, because you will understand, this is a superior path. But somebody wants Dhumadi Marga, Krishna saying no problem. That is what you will attain. Okay, now we are coming to the last verse of this chapter. With that we will end the day. Vedeshu yajneshu tapassu chaiva Daneshu yat punya phalam pratishtam atyeti tat sarvam idam viditva yogi param sthanam upayati satya. This is such an amazing benediction the Lord has given. You know what the Lord is going to say here? Lord is going to say here, look at the translation. All the study of the Vedas, yajnas, practice of austerities, and the practice of charity and other dharma, whatever rewards are declared in the Shastra, we're learning about the glories of Bhagavan as explained in this chapter. Okay, that means if you just understand 8th chapter, attaining the Supreme, whatever benefits you get by studying Veda, Yajna, austerity, all those rewards, okay, are going to be given. One surpasses all those rewards. Sorry, not that you will get. What is Krishna saying? One surpasses all those rewards and continuously performing the above dharmas and serving to Bhagavan. So he becomes a Bhakti Yogi, becomes a Jnani and attains the supreme eternal abode, Sri Vaikuntha Lokam. So here Paramadhya Sthanam is being said. So Paramadhya Sthanam, Ramanuja translates as the supreme spiritual world. So he's saying that basically just by understanding this chapter, 8th chapter Gita, see, because so much is said in this. See, the beauty of this 8th chapter Bhagavad Gita is, right, if you see the 8th chapter Bhagavad Gita, the beauty of the 8th chapter is Krishna has accommodated everybody in the 7th chapter. See, it's the whole connection is there. The 7th chapter, he spoke about 4 types of devotees. Correct? Artho, Jignasur, Artharthi, Jnani. And then Krishna has elaborated that in the 8th chapter, where these people will go. Okay, depending on what they practice, they are going to attain a particular abode. Okay. And all the abode, the what they should practice has been discussed. The marga that they go has been discussed. And what is the Falashruti has been discussed. What all they should know has been discussed. somebody should know Brahma, Adhyatma, Karma, somebody should know Adibhutam, Adidevam, all these things. Right? In this way, this chapter, Attaining the Supreme, now you can, look at the title of this chapter. Right? 8th chapter Bhagavad Gita, we all know, Attaining the Supreme. Okay, somebody when they are attaining the Supreme, you could have done it in one verse only. But because people are going to attain the Supreme in different ways, Krishna has opened up a buffet of options and kept it in front of us. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Any questions we will take? I think Smita Nema Prabhu had a question. I don't know. I saw it. Gaurav, do you have a question? Go ahead.
Prabhuji, thank you for the nice class. Prabhuji, one question I have is that while speaking, we were equating Kaivalya Arti and saying that his destination is like impersonal, right? So I could not relate that why is it necessary that somebody who is a Kaivalya Arti will go to that destination? Why it cannot be some other destination?
No, Kaivalya Mukti, we say na, Kaivalya. That word itself is related to impersonal liberation. No? Kaivalya means impersonal Mukti only, that is. I mean, that word itself is like that. It goes back to the Gita Jignasu. Jignasu means that inquisitive guy. Inquisitive means it is not, when we say inquisitive, it doesn't mean the person who is asking questions. Parikshit also asks questions, Arjuna is asking questions. Inquisitive means how to stop suffering. If you ask the question, how to stop suffering, you will land up at this only, Kaivalya Mukti, because that stops suffering. If that is the question, if that all is the question. Okay. Are you getting the point? So it all comes from that. Okay. So, and that is why his path also is different. His practice is different. Om Ityekaksharam Brahma. He has to chant Omkar. He has to control his senses. He has to pass from the top of the head. This is very typical of the impersonal path. So this is not Mayavad, remember. This is impersonal path. See, Mayavad is a different thing totally. This is impersonal.
Yep.
Path of impersonal liberation. Kaivalya Mukti. We hear all these verses now by our Prabodhananda Saraswati. Kaivalyam Narakayate. Kritashapur Akasha Puspayate. If you know that verse of Prabodhananda Saraswati, he's saying Kaivalya Narakayate. This Kaivalya Mukti is, he's talking from the divinity perspective. He is interested in the, in personal relation with Krishna. He feels that what is this Kaivalya Mukti? You're just situated in the Atma platform. Like that.
Okay.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, this Kaivalya or impersonal Brahman has Sat aspect of the Lord, right? That's what. So, but then Sat means eternal. So how?
One second. Let's go one by one. Gaurav Prabhu, your question is answered.
Probably to certain extent, yes. Maybe I'll think further about this and we put the questions on the group if needed. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay, Samir Krishna Prabhu, go ahead. Sorry, you started talking. I don't know where you are now.
Prabhuji, you told that Sat, the impersonal Brahman has Sat aspect of the Lord, and that is eternal aspect. So when soul goes to the impersonal Brahman, how does it come back then? If it is eternal also, then how the soul comes back?
No, see,
and when it comes back?
Generally, it doesn't come back. See, that Brahman platform is also eternal. Okay, now in some places it has been said that they come back. So there is a verse in the Bhagavatam, Aruhya Kritsrena Param Padam Tataha Patantedo Anadrita Ishmanatra. That means a person who goes to the Brahman also may come back if he wants activity. And basically in the Brahman platform, the Atma has no activity, right? So that is why the Bhagavatam, there is some verse there it says that he can come back. But the general understanding is that he doesn't come back. So let's be clear about that also. The Brahman Kaivalya Mukti is eternal only, and that is why Ramanuja warns. He says that it is a very dangerous place to go, because once you go, you can get stuck there forever, and you may never attain the Lord's abode only. You may be happy there eternally, and that's an eternal abode. So it's not even necessary that you have to come back. Technically, one doesn't come. It is like that only. Does that make sense?
Yes, Prabhuji. It is just like Vaikuntha only, like soul can go to Vaikuntha and he don't have to come back. But if he wants to enjoy, he can come back like that.
Yes, but Vaikuntha, the difference is you are having a personal relation with the Lord. Na? Here there is no personal relation. So from devotee perspective, this is considered a hellish condition, because you are not enjoying the rasa of relationship with the Supreme Lord. Actually, Ramanuja, if you read the commentary, he prefers, or he feels that even the Aishwaryarati is not so dangerous. Because that Aishwaryarati, even though he's surely going to come back, but at least he has a hope that he can go to the spiritual world in that sense, correct? But
Correct.
the Kaivalyarati guy who is there, he can get stuck in that Kaivalya Dham, and that's it. Kaivalya Dham only it is called. Okay, so then he's stuck there forever actually. So that's considered by Vaishnavas, they consider that a very dangerous. Are you getting it?
Yes. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Okay, one second. I'm just muting everybody. Yeah. Okay, Rajendra Kumar Prabhu, please go ahead. You can unmute yourself.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Prabhu, so for this Kaivala Arti, they have to take sannyas only. That is requirement.
Yeah, generally it is a very strong requirement. Or, I mean, either, see, from the Shankara Sampradaya perspective, they have to take sannyas only. But if you don't consider this, because please try to understand, the Kaivalya path predates Shankaracharya. That means Advaita Margana in general is before Shankaracharya only. Shankaracharya is new actually, as in he's later, because the path of Kaivalya is an eternal path, na? Shankaracharya is recent. From Shankara's perspective, you need to take sannyas. But otherwise also in Kaivalya Marga, this control of senses, complete withdrawal of senses is emphasized on. You will see in the verses. Like a Grihastha Jivan which is there, na? So for Aishwaryarti as well as Bhagavan Laparti, even in family life, one can practice and even go to the spiritual world or even get Aishwarya. But in Kaivalyarti, he has to have that complete control over senses, that absolute control over senses. You read that, you remember we read that verse 8.12, where Krishna says, complete withdraw all your senses and bring your life here to this point. Can you imagine that kind of a yogi he is? So even if he is householder, at least towards the end, he will have to be exclusively doing that. You understood? It's not that he is with his wife, children, and doing all these things. And he's doing. It's not a part-time occupation. This Kaivalyarti sadhana, it is a. See, even Aishwaryarti sadhana, it is part-time. Krishna said Abhyasa yoga. That means he is engaged in Varnashram also, and he is doing yoga also. Aishwaryarti. Even Bhakta is like that. But this Kaivalyarti is very, very exclusive because it's very difficult. That's why the Bhagavatam also says, na Arushya Krichrena Parampadam Tata. Bahut mushkil hai wahan tak pahunchna. It's much more difficult in terms of difficulty. It is very difficult. Bhakti part is much easy. Does that make sense?
Yes, Prabhu. The second question is about the Kaivalya Dham. So according to Rama, where one gets stuck. But our acharyas say that one can fall down from Kaivalya Dham. Is that?
Yeah, I think I just made that point earlier to Gaurav Prabhu that see both things are said. Generally, one doesn't come back. That is also an eternal place only, Brahman, Kaivalya. So Gita also says like that. Ramanujacharya also says he doesn't come back. But sometimes it is said in some places that he may come because he wants activity and desire. But generally, it's not a place of coming back. And that's the problem with it, because you're eternally stuck there. In fact, in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, Sanatana Goswami says that sometimes the Vishnu Dutas who are there, when they are traveling from Vaikuntha to, to this world, to take somebody back to Godhead, they find some fellows in this Kaivalya Dham as well. They preach to them also. That, or whatever. I mean, I don't know. I don't remember much about. I have to just refer that section once again. But yes, that place is an eternal place.
So what are those impersonalists doing in Kaivalya Dham?
So they are just focusing on Atma. See, so Ramanujacharya says the fellow is only thinking me, I, he's thinking. And in that only there is great happiness. The Atma itself is a source of Ananda. Na? So he's only thinking, in Kaivalya Dham, he's only focusing on I. I am existing, I exist. And thinking like that, and because he doesn't have any body, mind, none of this stuff, he's freed from all this. Na? Swabhav sab chala gaya, sab kuch chala gaya. There is no material contamination now. So that Atma itself is a source of Ananda. He's experiencing that. That Ananda is considered higher than material Ananda, by the way, in terms of gradations. But it is considered insignificant compared to the Ananda you can get in connection with Krishna. or Narayana. Are you getting it now?
Yes, thank
It is not a state where he's sleeping or something. Please remember, it is not like during Brahma's night, all of us are sleeping in Sushupti in Mahavishnu's body. It is not like that. Person is completely aware, but he's only aware about himself. He's thinking, I, he's thinking. And in that he's very happy. But he may be happy, but the devotees feel sad for him because they feel that this fellow is stuck here. Like that. Is that Damodar Ashtakam, Prabhu? Who's that with the raised hand? Is that?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yeah.
Dandavat Prabhuji. Two questions. First one is like in previous sessions long back, you had mentioned about Bhakti Vinod Thakur. He sees his grandfather or somebody who passes away like that.
Yes.
So, but he doesn't do that, no? Means that is only for. Means he was called by Bhakti Vinod Thakur to help him in the his last times, and then he sees.
Yeah. So
That
Bhakti
he-
Thakur writes that this is about his paternal grandfather in Orissa. He says
Okay.
that person was a Vaishnava but also a yogi. So
Okay.
because he was a Vaishnava and a yogi, he told Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he called him and he said, in 3 days I'm going to die. And when Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, when I went to meet him, he was hale and healthy. He didn't even look as if he's going to die. So we were all thinking that ye kahan jaane wala hai? Ye ekdam hatta-katta. But and it seems he would catch cobra and all that 2-3 days before passing away. Live cobra he would catch and do all that. And whole day and night he would chant. And he would eat some mangoes or something. He writes that in his autobiography. And he says exactly at the end of the 3 days, he passed away from this Murdana because he was a yogi also. See, again, please remember, so this yogi, he can anytime become a devotee also. So at least whatever I read from the Bhaktivinoda Thakur's description of his grandfather, what I understood is, that person certainly is a yogi, since Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying so. But the yogi can also become a devotee. So some point of time he got attracted to Krishna. He was chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra and he predicted, he told Bhaktivinoda Thakur that he gave him 2 predictions. He said at the age of 27 you will get permanent job. He was only 21 at that time and he was very in poverty condition. And exactly at 27 he became that magistrate. He also told him that you will become a very great Vaishnava. And at that time, Bhaktivinoda Thakur was not externally Vaishnava. He was just a and whatever his family was doing. He didn't know anything about Vaishnavism at that time in his, current life. So these 2 things he predicted, and he gave him some property also. And he passed away by, breaking his skull and going on. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, I was amazed by seeing the death of my grandfather. So what we understand is such yogis who pass away like that, it's not necessary that they have to go to Kaivalya. See, because it's possible that such a person, now please remember, from the Gita perspective, what we understand, this yogic power comes from past life. That means if somebody has practiced yoga in the past life, that continues to the next life. So when Krishna says in Gita 6th chapter, remember we read in 6th chapter, that the yogi who doesn't complete, he will come again. So such a person, he comes with that yogic siddhi. So that yogic siddhi is continuing next life. So he is able to pass away from here because he has done all the requisite yoga abhyas in the past lives. But somehow or the other, he became a devotee also. So now he is no longer interested in devotee. So that is what Ramadacharya also says in the 8th chapter. These yogis who are there, who are Aishwarya and Kaivalya, Prapti, desirous persons, anytime they can become devotee also. They just have to change their desire. I want to go back to Krishna. Then that's it.
Yes. Okay. And another point is that these people who
they are the best people to preach to because they have already done everything. Only they have to be convinced of the book. That's it. They'll immediately change their path like that.
Okay. And one more thing is like the people who live like that through Brahma, they can go to any place which they think. That is also there, no explanation.
Yeah, that is also there. That is also there. But such a person, Kaivalya Prapti candidate, he's not interested in
he will not think about.
He's not interested only. For him, all this Apsara dancing, all this is all some time pass only. He's not even interested.
Okay, no. In this case, I am just trying to.
Yeah, he can. If he wants,
because he is a Vaishnava, so here.
He can get anything lesser than that, greater than that, anything he can get. If he wants
No,
to have attachment to Krishna, but if he wants lesser than that, it is very easy for him.
Yeah. Second question is in CC now there is a very elaborate description of Omkar. Like it said that Om has 3 parts. The first part is Lord Krishna, second is the energy, and the third part is living entity. So, as you said, no, that Omkar is practiced mostly with the people who want to achieve the Kaivalya. So, how do we relate, like, if it is explained in such an elaboration in CC?
Yeah, see,
Like,
yeah, understood. See, the Omkar, it addresses both. It addresses the impersonal aspect of the Lord as well as personal aspect. It depends on how you are chanting and with what mood are you chanting.
okay.
Generally, the impersonals only chant Omkar. Prabhupada also writes that, and it is known to everybody. Because the devotees are more happy chanting the name of Krishna Rama Govinda directly. Why will see that there is a direct way of addressing the Lord? Why will the devotee opt for that indirect way of addressing and then think of him while chanting Omkar?
Okay.
Rather address him directly only, right? So the devotees of the Lord are generally interested in Nama Sankirtan. Though they could also chant Omkar and achieve Golok also. As they are chanting Omkar, if they keep thinking, oh, this is Radharani, this is Krishna, this is living entity, he can achieve. That path is available. But why will they? They have already fallen in love with the person Krishna, na? So they are not interested in that. So that is why generally Omkar is chanted by impersonalists. Yeah, Smitanaya Prabhu had a question. Was that his hand up? I don't know.
Yes, Prabhuji. Hare
Oh.
Krishna. Prabhuji, very actually simple questions. So it is said in one of the shlokas, right? Early chapters, Tattat Deyam Punarjanma Neti Mameti Sarjana. So all the three classes, this applies on which all, right? And on the Marga, the second question is in the Marga, which you mentioned about, right? In all seriousness, like, because we have seen some of the devotees also passing away, and they are saying that I'm seeing light, and they're chanting also. So is that the same thing which you are referring to, or it's like some other, maybe some hallucination or whatever it is? I don't know. So that was a general doubt, or rather a very practical one as well, that we have seen devotees, they refer to having different experiences when they're very close to death, and they are saying that I've seen a devotee very close, that who was leaving his body, and he mentioned around 10 minutes before he left that he's seeing light, and he's chanting Jagannath's name, and Hare Krishna Mahamantra he's chanting. So is this the same thing, or it's entirely different?
Yeah, it's very difficult to say, but I do agree with you that many people have made such observations. I have read about this as well and heard about this point, that many people at the time of passing away, they get visions. It is reported actually that different people get different types of visions. Some people get frightening visions also. Some people get auspicious visions like this. I will have to study further and find out more whether the vision, because this vision I have heard about it, the vision of light, whether that is actually this Archiradi Margam which he is currently seeing, or he is seeing something else. I would find it very difficult to say, because one sense, this is also a very subjective experience of an individual. We don't know what actually he is seeing. Okay, but I agree with you, and this is documented not only by devotees, but also by people like Ian Stevenson and others, in past life memory and so many other cases also, that at very time close to death, one has different types of visions. That part is accepted. That part is very much accepted. Okay, but what exactly they saw, whether it is the same thing as the Shastra, it is difficult to generalize. But it could be as well, because whatever. I would find it very difficult to say, because that was an experience of someone. As far as the other part is concerned, about not coming, so see, in the 8th chapter, Krishna says, Antakale cha mameva smaran muktva kalevaram yam prayati samad bhavam. Okay, so Ramanuja and Yamunacharya lay a lot of emphasis on that word bhava, saying that bhava means nature. So Lord has three natures. One is his opulent nature, which is material opulence is also the Lord's nature only. There's extraordinary material opulence, which is not even attained by Brahmaji. Kaivalya is also the Lord's nature only, and the Lord's abode is also the Lord's nature only. So everything is considered the Lord's nature only. Okay, but just that, depending on who you are, you land in a particular place, like that.
Okay.
This part is very clear that those who wanted material opulence, they have to come back. That's why all those subsequent verses are there. 8.16 Bhagavad Gita and Dhumadi Marga, etc. Because material opulence can never be eternal. It can be for a phenomenally long period of time, but it cannot be eternal by definition because it is still in the material coverings. Correct?
Yes, thank you.
Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki Jai. Gaur Premanande. Hare Hare Bol.